So for those who are just joining, this is Zenja Glass. I'm doing a live event right now. I want to talk about my book Necessary, and I want to specifically talk about the chapter about the pruning season. And just as I said a minute ago, this is not an easy chapter to cover, because in the pruning season, we don't realize why we're going through what we're going through at the time. It just, in many cases, it just makes no sense, right? Especially when we're doing our best to do what's right. We're helping others, we're serving, we're giving, we're trying our best to follow God and do what He's telling us to do. But yet things seem to still be pruning in our lives. And so that's why this was such a difficult chapter to write. Well, it was a difficult chapter to live through. Let me put it that way. It wasn't a difficult chapter to write, because now in hindsight, I can see why God took me through what He took me through. So I want to encourage you all. I see a lot of people joining the live right now. I see a couple people saying, "Hey Z." I'm assuming you all can hear me well. Again, this is a live broadcast, so hopefully everything will go right. Someone else just said, just bought the first badge. I don't know how this goes, but I guess people can purchase a badge or something. So thank you. I'm learning about this live that I'm on now. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Someone says I'm in a season right now. Okay, so I want to go ahead and get started. We're talking about the pruning season. And I guess I'm going to call this session Lunch with Z, because it seems to be around this time every day God has been telling me to get on a camera and go live right around when I'm supposed to be having lunch. So just look at this as just having lunch with me. So I think I'm gonna call these sessions Lunch with Z. But anyway, let me get started. So I love you all. I hope you all are doing well. We're gonna dive deep into my book Necessary. And for those who already have my book, I want to talk about chapter 5. So let's turn to chapter 5 for those who have it. And if you don't have it, don't worry about it. My book is available on Amazon worldwide as a paperback, and it's also available on my website at Zenja Glass as an audiobook. But I've said this before in my live events, and I want to say this again now, just so you know the purity of my heart. I'm actually not doing this to sell a book. I really am not. This is not about, let me figure out a way to sell a book. No. I'm actually walking in obedience, because God has placed it in my heart. Every single time that I'm going live and doing this, He's like, you're reaching the people that I need you to reach. You just need to walk in obedience and do what I say. So I pray to be as authentic, as vulnerable, as raw, as real, and as humble as I possibly can as I share my life with you. And I share a little bit from this chapter called the pruning season. So everybody ready? Ready to get started with this? Okay, I see some people here in the UK. Amazing. People all over the world are in this live. That's absolutely amazing. Okay, so let's get going with this. So chapter 5 is called the pruning season. I want to read a little bit, and then I'm going to stop and talk to you for a little bit, and then I'll read a few comments. I'm just going to kind of try to do all three things at one time, all right? So chapter 5, the pruning season. Let me just start off with the first couple sections of this. What happens when God, the good gardener, starts the pruning season in our lives to prepare us for the season of harvest? Can you recognize, and that's what this live is all about. I want you to be able to recognize it. Can you recognize the harvest is coming when the good gardener begins to cut away at what no longer is needed in your life? Can you hold on and trust your harvest is ahead when everything around you seems to fall away? It has taken me well over 50 years to finally understand a very simple yet challenging concept about the season before the harvest season. Because He loves me, He also prunes me. Now stay with me, you guys. Stay with me, because it's about to go deep really fast. Some of the most challenging moments in my life have produced my greatest growth. But I would be lying to you if I told you that I enjoyed all those seasons of pruning. In fact, it was during some of those painful seasons that I wondered if God really knew or even cared about what was happening to me. Pruning hurts. It cuts. It removes that which does not belong. Pruning ended some relationships in my life. Pruning uprooted and relocated me. At times, pruning left me feeling isolated, unloved, and confused, because I just couldn't understand why so much discomfort was happening in my life. I was so focused on what was being cut away that I couldn't see who I was becoming. Are you all catching that? It's easy for me to justify trouble coming into my life if I know I'm dealing with consequences from my own actions, such as doing something I had no business doing in the first place, right? Then I could say to myself, okay, I brought this upon myself. But when I was doing my best to serve others, to teach others about the love of Jesus Christ and honor God in my life, and trouble still came my way, that just made no sense to me whatsoever. So it must have been the enemy that was messing with me, right? After all, the thief comes to kill, to steal, kill, and destroy. That's John 10:10. I want someone to put that passage in the live stream. Someone type in John 10:10. And he roams around looking for someone to devour. And that's 1 Peter 5:8. I want someone to put that passage in real quick. 1 Peter 5:8. Surely he must have sneaked in when God wasn't looking, or did he? John 15, verses 1 and 2 says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Thank you for putting that in, putting those passages in, baby. Thank you. John 15, 1 through 2 states, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. Okay, so that part makes sense, right? He cuts off every branch that bears no fruit. Okay, I could see that. If you see my plants behind me, what you didn't see is before I went live, I took out one or two of the leaves that were already dead. So that makes sense if it bears no fruit. I don't have a problem with that passage. But hold on. While every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Well, hold on a second. This is where we got to take our time with this for a minute. I want you to catch that. Let's think logic. John 15, 1 through 2 says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Okay, I get that. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. Okay, so what's not producing fruit in my life, what doesn't seem to be good, doing good for others, glorifying God, it ain't good for me in my life, whatever. He cuts away that. That's no problem. I get that. But listen to the second part of this, baby. And this should be lifting your spirit. This should not be holding you down. Because some of you are being pruned for the season ahead and you don't even know it. You're sitting there thinking God don't forget all about you. You're sitting there thinking he don't hear your prayers because you got people cutting away from you. And you got situations in finances. And you've been working on this project or this goal or this dream and it didn't get off the ground. Or you had some friends or whoever backstabbing you. Or people talking about you or what have you. And you sitting there thinking, where's God? You know, why is this happening to me? I'm trying to do what's right. Listen to this. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Can I please say that one more time? Please allow me to repeat that again. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. Now that part makes sense, right? While every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Did you catch that? Sometimes when things are happening and going wrong in your life and you think everything is just going haywire, sometimes it's not even about the fact that you're doing something wrong. Are you aware, baby, that God pushes and moves people out of your life for a reason at times? Are you aware that relationship you may be crying over or that person that hurts your feelings? Are you aware sometimes God moves people out of your life before he takes you into that next season? Are you aware of that? There are conversations and things that happens behind closed doors you don't even know anything about, but God sees it all. And you sitting there wondering, why does this person treat me this way? And why did this person backstab me? And I can't trust this person no more. And God already knows this harvest season he's about to take you into, that person can't even go with you. Can't even go with you. Let me read a few comments to make sure someone is getting this. I'm reading some of the comments coming through. I want to make sure you all are getting all of this. I see some people waving. I see some people joining. For those who are just joining, I'm reading. Someone says, yes, I experienced this months ago. God hears conversations I didn't. I agree with you, Kelly, wholeheartedly. Absolutely. For those of you who are just joining, I'm reading from my book, Necessary, and I'm reading a little bit of chapter 5 called The Pruning Season. And I'm just trying to break it down just a little bit so you all can see what was going on behind the scenes when I wrote this chapter. Someone says, I think it's Roxana. Yes, that's happening in my life right now. Someone, beauty of heart in all things, said, I've learned that. Yes, absolutely. Definitely in my pruning season after losing my mother. I'm so sorry to hear that, baby. So sorry to hear that. Okay, so I'm going to keep reading with this, all right? So I'm going to jump down a little bit. I'm not going to read word for word everything in my book, but I'm going to jump down. Why in the world would God prune every branch that does bear fruit? Can we go there for a moment? Now, for those of you who don't know anything about me, I am not a licensed minister. I'm a woman who loves God with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. I happen to be married for 28 or so years, have 4 kids. They're all adults. Well, one of my sons, you all know, I lost. I'm a business owner, you know, an author, and I do a number of other things. But I love digging into the Word of God. So I'm not a licensed minister, but this is what gives me life. So I pray that this is encouraging you. So let me go and read him. Why in the world would God prune every branch that does bear fruit? The Bible teaches us, and I quote, in all things God works for the good of those who love him. That's in Romans 8:28. I want someone to write that down real quick. In all things God works for the good of those who love him. Romans 8:28. But why prune what is already bearing fruit? So if you work for the good of those who love you, then why, God, are you allowing this pain or this discomfort to be in my life? That's the mindset I was in that moment. Why is my bank account still looking the same way? Why did you give me this dream if you're not going to make it a reality for me? And I've been working on it for years. You get my point? Now, this is a rhetorical question I'm asking you because we're going to get to some answers with this. But isn't that interesting that God prunes what's already bearing fruit? Why would you mess with me, God, when I'm doing my best to do what's right? Why are you uprooting me? Why are you allowing this discomfort? Why are you allowing this person to treat me this way? Why are you allowing my boss to act like she don't even like me? You know? Why are you allowing me to lose my job when you see I'm praying to you every day and I'm trying to do what's right? What is up with that? And many times we ask those questions, but we don't even know what's going on behind the scenes. Oh my God, we don't even know. We don't even know for some of you, God has allowed some things to happen because he's given you a business idea. He's given you a dream or a goal, and he knows the only way that he can push you to be able to do that, I got to move her away from this. So you're sitting here wondering, God, why did you take this away from me? He's positioning you for something better. But let me keep reading. I'm going to keep on reading through this. And someone says maybe because we're not obedient. I want to touch on that too, because I don't want to make this all flowers and roses. Absolutely. Absolutely, there are times that we have to be pruned so we can get our acts together. I was there. You all may like me now, but you wouldn't have liked me maybe 15, 20 years ago. I was steeped in pride, arrogant. I didn't know it. I still went to church, still prayed, read my Bible, and did all of that. But oh my goodness, I was just so arrogant, steeped in pride, impairing my thoughts, you know, participating in activities and doing things I had no business doing. If you read my book, you'll already know some of the things I got into, you know. And you couldn't tell me I didn't love God because I was still doing all that mess. But I didn't see it. I didn't see that stuff. So you're absolutely right, baby. Sometimes it is because we're being obedient. But at the end of the day, God still loves us and he prunes us for his good. So let me keep going. Oh my goodness, this is so good. I'm on page 64 for those who are reading along with me. No matter how much I prayed, rebuked the devil, read my Bible, and cried myself to sleep too many times to count, God did not stop cutting away at what was no longer needed for the next season of my life. He broke off branches I thought I needed for my survival. He cut away leaves that I thought gave me protection. He uprooted me from the dry soil I was so comfortable in and planted me by the streams. It was painful. and at times frightening. I didn't understand why he put me through so much just to grow me. And I certainly didn't understand that he was preparing me for a greater harvest. Is there anyone that can relate to this? I want to read a few more comments in here. Someone says, thank God he loves us. Someone says, God is the master pruner. You can say that again, baby. Absolutely. He's the master pruner. It don't feel right when he's uprooting us. It don't feel right when he's repositioning us. I went through so many ups and downs. You name it, I went through it. In my marriage, I went through it like you would not believe. When I say that we were one half string away from divorce, I'm talking about a half of a string away from divorce. Arguing and getting into it all the time. My kids, I went through so much mess. Finances up and down, got to points where I didn't have a single dime, health issues. Just on and on and on. So many things I went through. Friends betraying me, talking about me behind my back. Friends I thought I could trust. I had to let friendships go. So many things I went through. And if you do have my book, there's another chapter in here called Through the Fire. And that's when I really go deep into all of those hard things I was going through at one time. And I was just like, God, this is absolutely ridiculous. But it's only in hindsight, baby, that I'm able to see what God was doing. It was in that pruning season that he was able to start growing me. And let's talk about that in a little bit. Oh my goodness, my God. As I pondered this question, I decided to conduct some research about the pruning process, specifically about grapevines, to get an understanding of how I could apply this passage to my life. The shortest conclusion from my research is this: pruning has to be done at the right time to avoid damaging or delaying the maturity, catch that word, of the fruit. Now, I conducted a lot of research before I wrote this in my book, just so you know, because I don't know much about gardening. It's really not my thing, even though I grew up on a farm with my grandpa. He raised me on a farm, but I don't know a lot about gardening. So I did a lot of research on, guys, why do gardeners prune? What is the point in that? So I concluded pruning has to be done at the right time to avoid damaging or delaying the maturity of the fruit. If a gardener wants to maximize the crop, the branches have to be pruned to ensure, check this out, it will continue to grow and produce ripe grapes each year. If the pruning process ever stops or is delayed for an extended period of time, check this out, fewer grapes are produced as a result. Now, if you don't believe me, you do your own research on why grapevines are pruned. And you'll see, go watch some videos on it. And you're going to see that the good gardener comes along and begins to prune and cut away. Yeah, he cuts away all the dead stuff that looked like it shouldn't belong. But some things look pretty good. And he's sitting there pruning and cutting away. And you wonder why. But in the next season, more grapes are produced as a result. It's just a beautiful analogy of how God works in our life. And I know sometimes it may be easy to say it, but I'm trying to get you to see that God knows what he's doing. And I know when we go through those pruning seasons, it just feels like, my goodness, God, where are you? I don't understand. He allowed me to go through all of those dry seasons, pruning me and uprooting me and relocating me and doing some of everything in my life. And it felt absolutely horrible. It felt like he didn't love me. It felt like, why is everybody else, why do their lives seem to be together and what's wrong with mine? It felt like, why is everyone else running ahead of me? It felt like, God, I've been praying for years about this situation, and do you even hear my prayers? That's how it felt. And I'm here to encourage you to hold on. If you're going through that process, just know this pruning season is going to lead to your harvest season. I want to read a comment or two in here. Someone says, it hurts so bad that I wonder why. I understand, baby. I do. And these are those moments where I had to go so deep into my relationship with God. That's when I began to start. If you have my book Necessary, there's a chapter in here called The Secret Place. And that's when I really began to have to start sitting in my closet. And literally, I was so tired and so weak and honestly so discouraged, I couldn't even pray. I won't even sit here and lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and lie and act like some religious woman. I couldn't even pray. I would just sit in my closet before God, and I would just cry my eyes out. And I would get to the point where I couldn't even cry anymore. And maybe I would say a little bit of a prayer, whatever I could muster out, and that was it. And I just sat. And I'm like, you know what, God, all I can do is just sit in your presence and wait for you. Wait for you to answer me. Someone says, you're summarizing my pruning experiences. I'm so glad that God knows what he's doing. Thank you, Z. Thank you for saying that, baby. I appreciate it. Another person says, it feels so lonely at times. Grateful for your guidance. I'm so glad that you just said that. One, I'm not glad that you're going through it, but I'm glad that you just said that, because I've noticed, now this is only in hindsight, this is why I'm able to give you this oil. I've noticed that let me speak from my own life, because I'm not going to sit here and act like, let me prophesy over you. No. Let me speak from my own experience. I've noticed the greatest maturity in my life has been when God got me alone. Every single major move in my life that God has done. And if you read my book, Necessary, you know some of the things I went through, right? You know, every single time. I don't know why it's like this, but God got me alone. Stripped away relationships, stripped away things I thought I could depend on. And he got me all by himself. All by himself, where I couldn't even depend on my own strength anymore. Normally, I can kind of figure my way through things, you know. I can, many of us are pretty intelligent, right? We can figure out a plan, and how God got me to points where there was no way I can think myself out of the situations. And then on top of that, my closest relationships all went left field. And it was in those moments of being alone that I realized God actually whispers. I talk about that in my book as well. I never sat long enough to realize, baby, he actually whispers to us. He actually desires to have a close relationship with you. I know you may not feel it. That's what he's going for. He wants to have an encounter with you. And the only thing that he's doing is trying to get you to be in his presence. That's it. He just wants you to be in his presence and sit with him. And it's so hard to do. It's so hard to do when there's fires all around you. There's a chapter in my book called Seek God First. And for those who have my book, I strongly suggest that's chapter 4. Oh, that's actually right before the pruning season. I'm trying not to deviate and get off on other chapters, because every chapter there's some power in there. But in Seek God First, I talk about how I was so upset when some women invited me to this Bible talk group many, many years ago. And everything that can go wrong in my life was going wrong. And they were talking to me about the importance of seeking God first. And I was offended. I was so offended, because I thought, how dare you? Did you not hear anything I said? I'm going through this in my marriage, this in my finances, this with health reasons, this with my children, this with this situation. And you have the audacity to tell me, to talk to me about sitting in the presence of God and sitting silent before him and letting him speak to me? And it wasn't that I wasn't praying and reading my Bible and going to church. I was doing all of that stuff. But that stuff wasn't working for me in the moment. And I felt like I had to make some decisions right then and there. I'm like, there's fires going on around me all in my life. If I don't figure this situation out, I don't know how we're going to make it. And your solution to me, this is what I was telling the women in this Bible group. I'm best friends with them now, to be honest with you. But I left that meeting, and I talk about it for those who have my book. You already know what chapter I'm talking about. I left that meeting so upset. I told them that they were too weak. Yes, I did. I told you I was extremely arrogant. 15, 20 years ago, you would not have liked me. You just wouldn't. But I told them, I said, you guys are too weak for me. I said, because if the best solution you can come up with is sitting and praying and going to God and listening to the Holy Spirit, and waiting for some magical answer to appear. This is what I told him. I said, if that's the best answer you guys can come up with, I said, I'm not coming back to this. This is not working for me. But I had it all wrong. First of all, that wasn't all that they were telling me to do. Let me be clear on that. But I had it all wrong. I did not know that seeking God first was the primary thing I needed to do. I didn't know that sitting with him in his presence. And I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't hear nothing at first. I used to sit and be like, I don't hear nothing. Like, what is this? Only these super religious people can hear from God. What is this? But oh, baby, the more he began to prune me, the more he began to humble me, the more he began to challenge me, the more he began to cut away. He didn't stop cutting. He just kept cutting. He just kept cutting. Kept cutting away at my finances, cutting away at my marriage, cutting away so many things. It's bad when you're in a situation where the police officers come to your house so many times they know your name. I'll just leave it like that. You know it's bad when they know your name. when they can identify and know some of your kids. So we got to that point. I mean, when I say cutting away, cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. And he continued and he continued, and it just challenged my pride. It challenged everything I was going through. And I finally got to that moment where I said, God, I surrender. I surrender. I've tried it my way. I've tried it my way. And it definitely ain't working. And I surrender. I surrender. Do what you want. I'm going to put it all in your hands. And that's when I began to sit. Now I'm kind of creeping into another chapter, which I don't want to go into. That chapter is called The Secret Place. And that's about when I just began to sit. I was too weak to pray. I couldn't pray that much. I wasn't really trying to read too many scriptures. I'm just going to be honest. Because I was like, it ain't getting me nowhere. I'm just being flat out honest. I read a little bit. I prayed a little bit. But I mainly just sat. I would go in my closet. I used to be afraid of going in a dark closet. But I don't know what it was. Something began to stir into me. I would go in my closet. The lights are all off and I just sit in the dark. And it got to a point where my family knew when they come upstairs, if my door's closed, they know Mama in her closet. And I sat for minutes. Minutes turned into hours. And I'm not exaggerating. Every day, just sitting with them. Sitting with them. Sitting with them. What are you trying to tell me, God? Since you say you want my presence and you want an encounter with me, and you say when I seek you with all my heart, I'll find you. And where are you? Show yourself to me. And I would sit, and I'll never forget when I began to hear that still small voice. He began to speak to me. It melted my heart. It changed everything. His pruning was so necessary in my life. Had he never taken me through the pruning process, I would not have been able to sit long enough to listen and know the sound of his voice. He had to take me low before he took me high. He had to. I had to go low first. Now, I can only say that in hindsight because I didn't like any of it. And some of you may be going through that right now. But he had to take me low before He had to take me low before he can elevate me. There's a chapter in my book called The Price of Elevation. If you've not read that chapter, definitely read that one as well. But I could not have received the elevation he had planned for me in my life with how I was in that moment. And I'm so glad God loved me enough to prune me. So I am praying to God that someone is being reached through this live and is helping someone to know and trust that God knows what he's doing. He could not have given me what he's given me now. And I'm not saying I'm all that in a bag of chips. I run a few companies. God has tremendously opened doors in those secret places. Oh my God, I'm trying not to go into that chapter called The Secret Place. I'm trying to stay on pruning. He began to give me ideas and concepts I didn't even know I could do. He began to whisper to me. That's where he whispered to me about starting a podcast. I'm like, I don't know nothing about a podcast. I don't even like social media. And that's when he just began to whisper. I want you to share what I'm sharing with you in this secret place with the world. I want you on the radio. And I saw a vision of like headsets on my ears. And I'm sitting there like, surely I'm not hearing what I think I'm hearing. Because I don't even have 2 or 3 followers on social media. I didn't know nothing about this mess. I don't get into this. I live a very private life. I don't get into any of this. He began to whisper to me. He began to give me strategies. I think I had a couple $100 in my name at one point. My business had plummeted tremendously. Imagine going from having a staff and employees down to having to borrow money to pay your bills. I'm just keeping it real with you all. God humbled me so good. Oh my God, I needed it, but I didn't know it. Had he taken me to where he's taken me now, when I was in that moment and I didn't go through the pruning season, I would be of very little use to him. Because I would be sitting there in my little nice, I'm in one of my offices now, but I would be sitting there in my little nice office, holding my little cup of coffee or tea, thinking I done did something to get me to where I'm at. And I still would love God and go to church and pray and do that, whatever, but there would be no oil. There would be no oil. Baby, what you're seeing now is oil. And you're seeing oil because you're seeing someone who's been through the fires. I can't help but give him the praise and glory. I can't help but do it. I can't help but do it. And I don't care how silly I may look online. Me as a business owner, president of a company with employees, online talking about God. I interview people for a living. So can you imagine people coming online and seeing me crying and talking about God and stuff? I've actually had one or two account, more than one or two, that are not comfortable with, working with the company where the owner talks about God. But you know what? That's their loss, not mine. I can't help but give him the praise and glory. Are you kidding me? He took me low. He had to do that first. So I want to encourage you all. For those who feel you're going through the pruning season right now, baby, know that God is with you. My God, he's with you. And perhaps, just perhaps, he's trying to train your ear to listen to his voice. Perhaps he's just trying to train your ear to listen to his voice. I didn't know he speaks. I didn't know that he's constantly whispering to us, because I didn't sit long enough to hear it. Let me wrap this up. I see a lot of comments. Z, you are a gift to the world. Thank you, baby. Thank you so much. Someone says, I know I need to trust God, but it's so hard to see elevation for myself. Oh my goodness. You're reminding me, many of you don't know, I have a mentorship program. Well, right now it's on hold. There's a waiting list because I have students in there now, and hopefully tomorrow or the next day I'll open it up for a few more people. So you can go to zenjaglass.com. But in what you just said, the reason I bring that up is that's one of the things that I talk to my mentees about. Is I talk to them about the importance of knowing who they are and what are the words that they speak to themselves, and being able to vision and see what God can do in your life. So many times we have such a hard time visualizing and seeing the harvest ahead and what God can do. And we have to really train ourselves. I won't get into that now because that's a whole nother session. If you look at my last 2 live sessions, I think the first one I did, I went live 2 or 3 times this week. I talked about that a little bit. I didn't get to catch your name, but find that session and just listen to that one. And I touch on the importance of what are we feeding ourselves, because so many times we focus on what's in our hand. And I think in that session, I talked about the importance that we got to start here first. What are we feeding ourselves? What are the words you're saying to yourself? What does God say about you? Because that impacts your feelings and your thoughts, which impacts your actions, which impacts how you move to go out and get what's already yours. But I'm not going to go into that now because that's a whole nother class session. And I this week with the people in my mentorship program, we dove deep into that topic. But I did do a live or a reel or something. Just go through I'm saying YouTube, any of my feeds, my YouTube or my Instagram feed, and you'll see that I talked about that quite a bit. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. But I want to stay on point with this chapter because I feel like I'm deviating a little bit. Let me just read the last part of what I wanted to read from this so I can close out, because it's already 12:30 and I didn't want to hold you all up for too long. Okay, where did I leave off? So I left off with a little bit of the research that I did. So let me give you a couple passages just to look up. I'm just going to jump to another section. I said, looking back, I realized and for those who are following along with me, I'm on page 65. Looking back, I realized I gave Satan way too much credit, because if any pain or discomfort occurred in my life, I always thought it was the enemy at work. I wasn't mature enough to consider if perhaps there were times the good gardener was simply at work, preparing me for the seasons ahead. I guess that's why the Bible teaches us to always rejoice in the Lord. Philippians 4:4. Can someone write that down? Philippians 4:4. Someone says, Z, I love you, my friend, but the Lord loves you more. Thank you, Larry. Larry, you're so precious. I read all of your messages. Thank you. But let me read this again. I guess that's why the Bible teaches us to always rejoice in the Lord. And that's Philippians 4:4. Because we know that even in our suffering, listen to me now, even in our suffering, God has plans to prosper us and not to harm us. And that's Jeremiah 29:11. Let me pause a second on Jeremiah 29:11. A lot of times we read that passage and we only read that last line. God has plans to prosper us and not to harm us. But baby, I want you to read the line before that. Look at what they went through when they were taken into, was it Babylon that they were taken into for those 60 or 70 or so years? They went through a lot for a long time. And that was God encouraging them that, hey, when you come out of this, like I got plans to prosper you and not to harm you. That don't always mean it's going to be tomorrow. That just means that he has plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Sometimes when we're going through the suffering, we feel like, man, it's been 2 years. It's been 5 years. I get it. It's been 20 years for me with some things I've gone through, but I know he has plans to prosper me and not to harm me. So I want to harp on that a little bit. Let me give you a passage to take with you, because I don't believe in just motivating people. You know, there are a lot of motivational speakers out there, and I would never say anything negative about them because I love them all. But I just want to be clear. I am the kind of person that I will do my best to motivate and inspire you, but I got to give you some meat to go on. And to me, that meat is the Word of God. So I want to give you a passage to go with. When we exit this live, I want you to study this out. Someone put in the chat Hebrews 12:11. Hebrews 12:11. It says, no discipline. This is the NIV version I'm reading. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Let me read that one more time, baby, before we close out. Hebrews 12:11. No discipline seems pleasant at the time. So, baby, it's not just you. None of us like it. Okay? I know this moment may feel bad. None of us like it, because I surely didn't like it. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So what I talk about, I forget which chapter, and I've been reading from my book Necessary. What I talk about in this quite a bit is, I think there's a chapter in there where I talk something about gold pain. I refuse to allow any of my pain to be wasted. Every single thing that I go through, by the grace of God, He's training me to be able to turn around it and use it for His good. Like, you all don't know, I've actually been having a tough week this week. There's some situations going on, especially with one of my companies. We had a major account, and they put their hiring on hold. We had another major account we were supposed to get for whatever reason, and I won't go into that. That's on hold, and they've not onboarded my staffing firm to be able to staff them. And it's really tremendously impacted my company. And I was feeling some kind of way this week, I'm being honest. So that's going through something, right? Now, let me tell you how you turn that pain into gold. So I've been talking to God like, okay, God, you first in my life. I'm going to do your will no matter what. No matter what. No matter what this situation is looking like all of a sudden here with my other company. How do we turn this into gold? Guess what God started putting in my heart? I want you to go live every day this week. And I want you to talk to my people. Now, you may say that don't even make any sense. It don't even correlate. How do you turn it into gold? I want you to go deeper with me and spend time with me. Okay, God, how am I going to fix this situation? I need to have encounters with you. I need to be in your presence. Go deeper with me. And notice when I did my first live this week, it was on going deeper. So you don't see behind the scenes. You may look at me and think, oh, this woman got it all together and she's all happy all the time. No. I go through mess too. I really do. This impacts my finances. It does. I got kids in college and bills to pay and all types of things. And look at how the gold is being produced from this. God has put in my heart your solution, what I want you to do, Miss Z. Spend time with me. Be in my presence. Watch what I'm about to do. That's all God's given me. I want you to go live every day this week. And I've been fighting it, but He's been I want you to go live every day. I have people out there I need to reach through you. That's your solution right now. Does that make sense? Now that's called, I just read that passage, producing a harvest of righteousness. Listen to me, baby. For those who've been trained by it. That's a training. Because now I'm being trained more and more and more that, I'm going through this pruning season. God, what glory can you get out of this? Just like when I lost my son. And I don't wish this on anyone to lose a child. For many of you are aware, my son had sickle cell and his bone marrow transplant wasn't successful. The last thing on my mind was to be trying to sit down and finish writing a book to encourage other people. And you want to know the gold that God pulled from that? He poured into me so heavily during my moments of sorrow that I need this to be packaged, because I have so many people who've lost loved ones and they've given up on me, or they have a hard time coming to me. And I need them to see an example of someone fighting to have a relationship with me. I need them to see an example. So we're not going to let this pain go to waste. We're going to produce a harvest of righteousness for those who've been trained by it. That passage I just read. I hope somebody's getting this. Hope I'm not just talking to myself.
So in those moments when I'm crying my eyes out and I'm visiting my son's gravesite, I'm sitting there with God and I'm writing. That's where chapter 23 comes from in my book. Chapter 23 is dedicated completely to him, producing a harvest of righteousness. So don't let this pain you're going through, baby, be put to waste. Don't let it be put to waste. Come on. Some of you got a book right now that God is working on you through what you're going through. You think it's a waste of time. You think God don't forget about you. You think, all of this mess is going on in your life, and when is it ever going to get any better? And God can be sitting there, looking at you like, okay, hopefully this is the day she's going to realize this is a book that's going to be a bestseller that's going to solve all her issues. Hopefully she realized that this program she needs to create to help other women who are going through similar situations, or other men, I should say. Hopefully this person now realizes what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to squeeze this nonprofit out this person. I'm trying to squeeze this business out this person. She thinks I had her lost her job because I don't care. No, I need her to jump on that dream I gave her, because I already got people set up. I already got people set up for what she's about to do. And she's sitting here worrying about that little paycheck when I already got millions waiting on her elsewhere. Now, I'm not making this all about money. I'm no prosperity gospel preacher, whatever. In fact, I'm not a licensed minister at all. But I'm making a point. That's called training. Marinate on that passage I just read. And I'm not trying to yell at you all. I'm trying to just get this fire through you. That's a training. That's a training. Like, God, this hurts. I don't like the way this looks. I don't like the way my bank account looks. I don't like the situation that happens. But then you say, God, what glory can you get out of this? What glory can you get out of this? Is this a poem? Is it a book? Is it a nonprofit? Is it a company? Do you want me going live every day to help other people? What glory can you get out of this? Because, baby, when you put that focus on glorifying God, and that don't mean you have to be a minister. That don't mean everything you do have to be, under that category. But when you can switch your training to put that focus on whatever you're going through, God, how can you get the glory from this? Baby, your whole life is going to change. And I'm a living witness. So anyway, I've been live long enough. I said I was going to go live for maybe 15, 30 minutes, and it's already been 40 something minutes. You guys probably sick of hearing my voice by now. But anyway, let me read a few comments here before I close out. The Lord says the meek shall inherit the land. I agree with you. I see a lot of people saying confirmations. I see a lot of people saying God has not forgotten about me. Someone lost a 6-year-old. I'm so sorry to hear that, baby. I know it's tough. I know it's tough. And you may be able to be the very voice that's going to help others who has lost young children. Someone says, trusting God for my next move, lost my job. I see a whole lot of people saying, thank you for the live. Never sick of hearing your voice. Thank you for saying that, baby. I appreciate that. I see some people that said they've lost their dad. Some people looking for the book Necessary. Necessary is available worldwide on Amazon. So any place in the world you should be able to order it or go into any bookstore and get it. The audiobook is exclusively on my website at Zenja Glass. And for those who are still on the waiting list for my mentorship program, and I know I've been slow with letting people in. I've only been letting a few in at a time. You can go to zenjaglass.com and just join the waiting list. And I pray, if it's God's will, because I'm waiting on him to give me the green light, I pray by tomorrow, maybe even later this evening, but by tomorrow, I'll let some more people into the mentorship program. And that's pretty much what I'm doing now, is just that we meet throughout the week and go in deeper discussions. And instead of just looking at text messages, I actually see their faces. So I love it because we're able to talk through their issues. And so far, the people that are in the program say they've been tremendously blessed by it. So anyway, that's at zenjaglass.com. But I love you all. I love you all. I pray this was helpful. I'm going to walk in obedience and go live again tomorrow at noon. I got a lot going on, but I got to do what God's telling me to do. I think tomorrow we're going to either talk some more about the pruning season, or we're going to talk about the season of being hidden. I'm not sure. I got to see what God puts in my heart. Someone says, Mimi says, God richly bless you, being able to pour out to us. Your testimony and everything you do is the fruit of the pain and all the pruning. Thank you, Craig. Thank you. I love you all. I wish you know how much I pray for you. I do. I really do. I love every last one of you. And I love seeing that there's people from all over. Let me just read a few more messages. Oh, someone's on here from Miami. Someone said, I just ordered your book. Thank you. For those who have ordered my book, please make sure you leave a review, because the way that Amazon works is the more reviews that you get, they begin to
kind of show your book out to more people. So please leave a review. That really would be very helpful. I appreciate it. Someone says, can we talk about being hidden, please? Maybe we'll go into that. I'm going to pray to God and ask him if that's what he wants me to go into. Larry saying, Z, you're such an inspiration. Thank you, Larry. You've been so precious, commenting on just about all of my posts. I see some people on here from South Africa. Oh my gosh. Absolutely amazing. I see Pittsburgh, Kenya, Puerto Rico. See, that's what's amazing about social media is that I don't know how this is streaming all over. I just know to push a button and talk. I see New Jersey. I see Germany. This is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So for those of you tomorrow, so you know what? Let me pray about it to decide exactly the chapter we're going to go through tomorrow. I think I will go into being hidden unless God gives me something different. Because the beautiful thing about being hidden, that's that season when, that's actually a pretty deep chapter. Maybe we will. I'll pray about that. Because that's those moments when you feel like God is punishing you. It feels like a punishment, but he's really hiding you because he's preparing you. And so I think that correlates really well with what we just talked about now. So for those of you who do have the book, go to Hidden is on chapter 10. So go to chapter 10 and read that through. Now at the end of each chapter, you all know the chapter starts off with an inspirational a self-affirmation message, but at the end it gives all the recommended reading, a lot of Bible verses, but then it goes into the assignments. I hate using the word homework, but it is. There's a couple homework questions. Make sure you're doing the homework. Don't just fly through this book. Each chapter is a standalone chapter that really, by the time you're done reading the chapter, not only would you have learned from my story, but you should have been able to go on that transformation journey with me and make some key decisions in your life. Sort of like this live I'm doing right now. Hopefully, I pray, at least I pray to God, someone's walked away thinking a little differently. Like, this season hurts, but God, how can I give you the glory in it? Because when you can figure that out, baby, everything changes. Everything changes. Satan can't even have a hold on you no more. The enemy can't do nothing to you no more. And that's why at the end of my book, there's a chapter called A Letter to the Enemy Part 2. And that's that chapter that talks about you have lost. You thought you won this battle and you thought you had me, but you've lost because I'm already dead. I'm dead to myself and I'm alive in Christ. And it's a very, very, very strong chapter. So anyway, I'm deviating. I'm going off into something else. Let me read a few more of these comments here from South America. You should do a live book discussion on each chapter I'd come. Well, I'm kind of doing that now. That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm kind of walking through a few things, but that may not be a bad idea. I don't know what God wants me to do, baby. All God is telling me, and I've been trying to fight him. I'm being very honest. I've really been trying to fight it. Because I don't do this many lives. I just don't do this. But even this morning, after I was done praying and reading my Bible and getting ready for work, God put in my heart, you're going to go live today. And you're going to do it again tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, Lord, what are you doing? So I'm just going to keep doing what he's telling me. Someone says, I couldn't have said it any better. That was Larry again. I see South Africa in here. Someone says, hi, Mom. Whenever I see hi, Mom, that just touches my heart. You all had me crying the other week. Someone, I think it was on my YouTube page, said, oh my God, I can't even say it without crying. A couple of you said, Z, you may have lost your son, but you gained a lot of children. And I don't even know if you realize how much that broke me down. How many times I've cried over those statements. That you may have lost your son, but you gained me as a child. So that just really touched my heart. Anyway, let me end this. Couple people saying, we love you. So happy to see you live. I see South Carolina's in the house. All righty, you guys. So I'm going to end this now because I'm almost 50 minutes in, which is unbelievable how fast this time goes. Let me just do a recap. So today we talked about the pruning season from my book, Necessary, Chapter 5. You all are sort of convincing me that tomorrow we need to talk about hidden, which is chapter 10. So for those of you who have the book, please read the whole chapter. That's important. And do the assignment at the end of the chapter, all right? For those who asked about wanted to inquire about my mentorship program, right now it's a waiting list. I may open it up again later tonight or tomorrow to add a few more people to it. It's just sort of a more of a private community, and I love it because I get to see the faces and we get to talk through issues. And so I'm growing it out, but I also want to walk in wisdom. So you can go to zenjaglass.com and sign up on the waiting list, and hopefully you'll hear from us on that. And there was one other thing you all asked about. Oh, in my book. So it's available on Amazon, and the audiobook is on my website at Zenja Glass. So I love you all. I better get off of this live. I have not had lunch yet, and I've got to go, but I love you. I love you. I love you. Find this video and post and put your comments in it, because for some reason after I go live, I can't see your post messages. So I'd love to know if this helped you. And thank you all for the gifts. A few people sent some gifts or something. I got to figure out what that's all about. But thank you guys for sending that. I appreciate it. But make sure you please find this video. It'll be live in literally just a few minutes on this platform. And comment and let me know what you think and if this helped you. And let me know if there's a different chapter you want me to talk about. So maybe I'll get some input from you all. But I love you. Let's all remember the pruning season. The pruning season is a very important season in your life, because it's your season before your harvest season, baby. So the only thing you got to decide is, are you going to be trained through this season, or are you just going to keep going through it over and over and over again until you can get that training that you need? All right? I want you to hold on. Don't you even think about giving up. Don't even have that as an option. Hold on. Spend that time with God. Sit in your closet or do whatever it is that works for you, and just sit in his presence. What God told me 3 or so years ago when I started my Unlocking Greatness podcast, I'm going to say this and I'll stop. I said, God, I'm not a licensed minister. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a counselor. Like, what are you doing? I run companies. I'm a mother. I got kids. I have a son with special needs. Like, what are you doing? You want to know what God told me? He says, your main objective, what I'm putting before you, I just want you to encourage my people to sit in my presence, and I will take care of the rest. I kid you not. He tells me that all the time. Even with my whole mentorship, everything that I'm doing, he says, encourage my people to sit in my presence and let me take care of the rest. Because I don't have everybody's answers to everything you're going through in life. I don't know. I mean, so many situations, I don't know. And that's why I was getting a little like, Lord, I don't even know if I can do this podcast thing. Like, I don't have everybody's solutions. And all he's like, share what you've been going through in your life and encourage my people to sit in my presence, and I will take care of the rest. And so that's what I'm doing my best to do, to walk in obedience, okay? And I want you to do the same. I love you. 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 I look forward to reading your comments, and make sure you read that chapter in the book so we can go into it tomorrow, okay? All right. Bye-bye.